You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS, together as one, we get it done.
Hello, my name is Chris, and you are watching the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Tonight's show is going to be fantastic. It's fantastic to be back, as always, and we have got a great show lined up for you. So please do stick around, hit that like button if you fancy doing so, and of course, subscribe if you're new to the show. We've got a great show, as I said, and coming up will be two guests that have been on this show before. In fact, it was February 2021, which was like 20 months ago. I can't quite believe it was that long ago that they came on the show with book number 1. But of course, they're here to talk about book number 2 tonight, which will be fantastic. And it's going to be really interesting because we get to find out just how two authors who work together virtually, how that relationship's been building. And, you know, it's difficult enough for us to write as a solo author. I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with that. So we're going to dig into that as well. But it won't follow the normal format because we've had the show before, where we discovered their road to writing. And if you click on the link up here after the show's finished, that will direct you to that link where you can look at their past and their road to writing, of course. So this format will be slightly different. It'll be more like an open conversation between all of us. If you have questions for myself or tonight's guests, or thoughts or feelings, any of that stuff, you can send those into the chat, and I can pull them up on screen. And thank you for tuning in, because it's great to see you on the chat there as well. Again, those questions, send them in throughout. There's no sort of designated time for that at the moment, but of course, send them in. So what else? A bit of news. Last week, the Writing Community Chat Show teamed up with queerindie.com, and we were on the Brooklyn Book Festival for the second year running, which was a virtual show, which was a lot of fun. We got to talk about all things writing and death of characters, and if you actually consider writing, seeing how your characters adapt after sort of traumatic situations in the stories. So that was really interesting. Check that out if you haven't done so, obviously, after this show. And what else? Next week, in 5 days, I will be walking the Frontline Walk, which is a 100-kilometer walk over 3 days in France along the Western Front of World War I, raising money for veterans, serving soldiers and their families. That has been an incredible journey up to this point. I haven't even left yet. I've got 5 more days. And the support you guys have given me has been unbelievable. And I've smashed my fundraising target already. And all I can say is thank you so much to everyone that's helped me out and donated. It's meant the world to me. It's made me feel absolutely honored to be doing this and to have your support. So thank you so much. And of course, I'll be away next week. So what's happening with the show? There are 2 shows popping up for you next week, which are kind of veteran orientated. The first one will be on Tuesday. That will be with a guy called Terry Wenham. Terry is a podcaster. He's an author, and he has raised over £60,000 over the years for this charity, the ABF Soldiers Charity, which is just incredible. And he spoke a lot about, he's done the walks many times. In fact, right now he is in the France along doing the Normandy 100k walk. So that's his charity walk this week. But he gave me a lot of tips about it. He told me some great stories, and that was really interesting. So that'll be Tuesday. And on Thursday, I will have interviewed Ruth Birch, who is someone I used to work with, who now works for Fighting with Pride. Fighting with Pride is a charity that looks at veterans, possibly still serving soldiers, who were affected by the gay ban. And this was a really fascinating interview where we kind of saw the realities of that and some of the stories, and learned how some people who were outed during the service during that time lost their medals, they lost their career, they lost their pensions. And of course, some of them weren't even out to their family at that time. So you can imagine the impact that had on them. So Thursday's show was really fascinating to interview Ruth about that. And what they're doing is they've got a campaign where they look for evidence. There's a campaign the government's running where they want evidence submitted. So if you know someone who went through that experience or has evidence, please go watch that. And you don't have to watch that, but please, if you do have the evidence, that's what they're looking for to support that campaign. Really, really interesting. So thank you to everyone in the chat. Anya's here. Hello to you, Anya. I hope you're doing well. Brandon is here as well. We've got a couple of questions popping in. Hello to Gail, who says, hello, this will be great. Who else we've got here? Brandon is here. He says, Sam, I raised my cup of coffee to you. It's 2 p.m. here in the States. Yeah, appreciate that's early for some of you people there. I am raising not coffee, and you can imagine that is a tasty beverage. Who else? Sarah's here. Hello, Sarah. Linda, hello to you as well. Plenty of you tuning in, so thank you very much. Appreciate that. So, enough of the news. I'm very excited to get tonight's guests on, one of which is here at the moment. I'm sure the other one will tune in very soon. Tonight's guests, I'll talk about them both, and I'll get one on at the moment, and we'll see what happens. Ana Gomez is the author of multiple books under the pen name Christine Bray. Moments Like This was her first book as herself as Ana Gomez. And Kristoffer Polaha is an actor, author, and producer known for Hallmark movies and TV shows. He was, in fact, known as the handsome man in the Wonder Woman film 1984, and even more recently was in Jurasic Domination. Moments Like This was his first book as well. So without further ado, please introduce, let me welcome Ana Gomez. Hello, Ana. Welcome to the show.
Hi. You caught me texting Chris. Chris is running late, but he should be here soon.
That is absolutely not a problem, because that means I get more time with you, Ana, and that is all good. So, Ana, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure that you can come back on the show. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me and us here, Chris. It's so nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And I can't quite believe when I said it was like 20 months ago, January 2021. I know it was last year, but it feels like a long time ago. And I can imagine that you guys have been doing a lot of work in that time, so it's quite exciting. But generally, Ana, how is it going for you? And someone in the chat mentioned 2 p.m. What time is it for you? And where are you at the moment?
I'm in Indiana, which is right across from Chicago, and it's 2 p.m. So it's the same. I need my coffee.
You should have brought a coffee with you. Yeah, of course. It's great. And coffee in the afternoon is definitely a good thing. So, Ana, as we mentioned, and we'll talk more about the book down the line. And guys, like I said, if you've got questions, there's no sort of right time to do that in the show anyway, but generally it's towards the end. Please send them throughout. Ana, what I kind of wanted to ask you off the back of last year's show was, you spoke about this being your first step into writing as Ana Gomez, not Christine Bray. Mm-hmm. So my question wanted to be, how was that transition for you? And did you feel kind of perhaps vulnerable stepping into that publishing name as yourself? Because there was a reason behind you having a pen name in the first place, obviously. So how was that transition for you?
It's been great generally. There were a few changes, obviously, that have happened, professionally and in this book life that prompted me to use my real name at first. But basically, it's a change in terms of just the readership, the groups now that are reading two different books. I've written, less light stories and lighter stories, like with Moments Like This and Now Where the Sun Rises. And so I think it's actually been a very interesting shift in that there are two sets of readers that are reading Ana Gomez / Christine Bray. Yeah. So since we last saw you, so much has happened. The pandemic was still on. We're slowly coming out of that. And so it's just a big shift, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine. And before you mentioned that you had a good Facebook group of supporters, and they really kind of gave you suggestions and helped you promote everything. So did they kind of react well to the twist, not the twist, but the change in direction and Ana Gomez coming out as the author? Were they kind of, what was the reaction like from them?
No, I think very positive. I think it was great. I think the thing about my group is they support me no matter what I write, and so they've been super supportive. Nobody has left me, which is a good thing. And then I've gained more friends, especially from Chris Polaha's group, that have come in and joined as well. So it's all been very positive, very supportive. They might not necessarily read, both types of books, but they're in the Facebook group and they've stayed there. So that's all I'm grateful for.
Oh, amazing. That is fantastic. Samantha says on the chat, 6:10 a.m. in Melbourne, Australia. Well, thank you for tuning in. That is commitment there. Well done to you.
Hi, Sam.
I can now add to the stream, everybody. Kristoffer Polaha. Hello to you, sir.
Hello. Sorry, I'm making an entrance here. I was just a little magazine called People Magazine. So I had to wrap up an interview.
That is not a problem. Thank you for joining us. We just got started with Anna and we were getting some great feedback and answers about her sort of following and how the transition was from Christine Bree to Anna Gomez. And of course, I mentioned how that was her first book as Anna. And of course, it was your first book as Kristoffer as well. Yeah. So how was that transition for you been stepping into the world as an author? Now that's kind of settled down and we're looking now at book 2.
Is this to me or is this to Anna?
Yeah, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think with book 1, it was such a lark. And somebody recently said to me, everyone's got one book in them, but 2, when you say, well, no, we have the second one coming out, it all of a sudden it levels it down and people all of a sudden they take it a lot more seriously because they're like, oh, this is a real commitment on your end. Perhaps I should invest in this thing. And I think for Anna and I both, book 1, it really was a lark. We just wrote this thing on high hopes with little expectation, not knowing what it was going to do or how it was going to be received. And then when moments like this came out and people loved it like they did, and we have this beautiful rabid fan base now, and we have people who are eagerly awaiting the second book, we knew that the stakes were higher. Yeah. And we also knew that we had, I think Anna, she's such a wonderful writer. She's been such an incredible mentor. And if you read the Christine Bray books, they run a little darker and they run a little deeper and they run a little like it. I think the intention for this From Kona with Love series was to create family-friendly, sort of soft romances, ideally intended for the Hallmark audience. But we've sort of separated it. We're creating, I think in this, if I may be so bold as to say its own little genre that's like, we know we're not going to end up on Hallmark with these movies and with the books, but we do want to honor, people who read it who, aren't expecting to get hit with Harlequin style romances. So we're, and I think we both got a little deeper with Where the Sun Rises. And I think we both pushed ourselves as writers and as storytellers. And so the stakes got a little higher, which as they do.
Yeah, I really like you referenced your fan base as a rabid fan base. I think I've never heard that before. That's really interesting. And also, Chris, we were just mentioning that when you came on the show before, it was a whole 20 months ago in February 2021. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it really was. And of course, there's been a big gap in between where you've been working on this together. And what I'd like to know is you were very complimentary of each other last time around about how your virtual working relationship, because you work like this on screens, and I think that's incredible. But how difficult has that been? And has that relationship kind of improved, or has there been some difficulties? Because book 1, it's all exciting. Book 2, there may be some more pressures there. Anna, did you find there was much difference? And Chris, the same for you?
The only difference is that we've truly become friends.
Yeah.
So book or not book, we were talking at least a few times a week. So, it's no change. I mean, better, I think. I think the trust is better. This book was harder to write. Life just kept coming in and just throwing things at us. And so we had to kind of maneuver through that. And it just made us better as writers, as friends, and as co-authors, I think.
Yeah.
There's a chapter in this book that I started and Anna finished. And in my mind, I knew what the character was going to do next. It's Melee, and she had to unbuckle her seatbelt to get out of this Jeep. Like literally, like technically, she had to literally unbuckle a seatbelt to get out. But I stopped writing before I wrote that. And Anna said, you know what, I've got time. Let me finish the chapter, and then I'll get on to Melee's chapter. And I said, great. And the first thing she writes is, Melee unbuckled her seatbelt and whipped her head around. And I was like, was like, you did it. So she and I have this weird, it's a yes and, like, oftentimes you'll collaborate with somebody and they just don't quite get you. Like they just don't quite get the thing that you're aiming at. And you have to be, you keep repeating, you're like, no, what I'm trying to say is this. No, what I'm trying to say is this. And they just don't, for some reason, hear you or see it, or you can't describe it the way you want it. With Anna and I, it's been this almost, and I'll use the word miraculous collaboration in the sense that she and I are on this weird wavelength and we're just picking up what each other's putting down. And it happened with moments. It's happening with sunrise. It's just this, it's a really, and I don't like talking about it because it's like, you almost feel like if you touch it, it's going to disappear. But the truth of the matter is the friendship that has developed, it's incredible. I mean, I remember Anna has bailed me out of just hard times, emotionally. I remember I was in a makeup trailer and I got a call from her and she was in tears and I was like, are you okay? And, we have our spouses and we have our friends, but there's this unique relationship that exists among creators because we're creating these like little book babies together. And there's just something about spending time with somebody and being like, hey, and I think it's refreshing because we always check in and we're both extremely busy people. Like Anna, I don't know if you've done a deep dive on Anna Gomez, but this woman is a baller in so many ways. Her story, her personal story is incredible. And then what she does for a living, like she's just a full-time, she's running and gunning full-time. So we have these little windows of time that sometimes are 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe if we're lucky, it's 20 minutes. And we'll check in with each other. We're like, okay, how's it going? How are your kids? How's your life? How's everything? And then
he's also the king of butt dials. So I don't know why it's always me. Like my phone will ring, it's him. He'll be like, "Sorry, butt dial." And so then he'll say, "You know what? I think we were meant to talk because I keep calling you accidentally." So
yeah, I'm like, is there something we need to talk about? Because I butt dialed you twice today. Like, what's up?
That's
but
amazing.
It's cool. It's been good. It's just been like a totally unexpected collaborative relationship, for both of us midlife, like all of a sudden out of nowhere, and we're already into book 3, which is, the objective is we're both very goal-minded people and we both like our checklists. She's much better at the organization than I am, but like,
not lately.
It's a good collaborative. It's a good collaboration.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. It really does. Gail says she is amazing. I'm not sure if she sleeps. So Anna, what I'd like to ask off the back of that, what you were just talking about, is if you have any tips for someone who may be looking to get into a co-author relationship with somebody for the first time, what would you tell them as a bit of advice?
It's a hit or miss, really. It's really a hit or miss. I know a lot of authors who have co-written a book and one book and that was it. It was very difficult for them, or they didn't see eye to eye, or there were ideas that they didn't agree on. So, I'm not one to give advice because I think we just got really lucky.
Yeah.
But I would say is that, be very encouraging and always know there's other points of view than your own, which is why you write together. It's to get different points of view together in different stories. But I mean, I think this is like not a weird, but it's an anomaly, I think.
Yeah, fantastic.
At least for the second or third book. I mean, one book maybe, but a few books.
Yeah. I mean, it takes an incredible, it takes mutual generosity and humility. You can't have an ego. Like if I come with an idea and I like jam that idea, onto Anna's desk and say, this is the way it is, it's just not going to work. But like if I throw something out but we also have this, and where the humility comes in is we both have this yes and attitude where she's like, okay, let me see if I can make that work. And she'll put something in the chapter. And I'll be like, yeah, great. Let me see if I can make that work. And so we just yes and each other in this way, unless there was something that put down, but I can't even think of examples of anything that was ever put down that was going to make the story too divergent that we were like, probably shouldn't. Like, is there anything
no, but I had for the longest time, I had the end in my head. Remember?
Mhm.
And he called me on my birthday, like almost midnight, and said, I wrote the end. And I'm like, no, but this is the end I wanted. And it was completely different, but we went with it. So I get, remember?
I do. I mean, not like that, but yeah, I remember.
No, you were so happy. You're like, I wrote the end. It's the end. And I was like, oh. And then it was a better end than mine. But yeah, so you
I was like,
really have to have an open mind.
I was doing something good, and she's like, "Oh, it's my birthday, and you've stolen the ending from." But that's my point. It's that, but it's that example. That's an amazing example of Anna's generosity and her humility and her willingness to be like, great, let's see what it is, versus anybody else would have been like, no, it's it's my ending. Da, 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 da. We changed the timeline around. We got some notes, and we were like, it's a much deeper book than Moments Like This. Just for the readers out there who are expecting, there's no Moments tour. There's no, like, Moments Like This was very frothy. It was very sort of, we wanted it to feel escapism, and we wanted to take people out of COVID. And with Where the Sun Rises, we're asking for a bit more of a commitment. And all that means is that we just, it's a different adventure that they go on, you know?
So I was going to save this for a bit later on, but we may as well, as you're touching on the book now. And by the way, the book one was amazing. I can't wait to read Where the Sun Rises from Marla Joyce. That clearly the ending was more than sufficient for that reaction. So before we dig into the rest of the show, can someone, whether Anna is or Chris, either one of you, give us the rundown of what Where the Sun Rises is all about?
Chris.
Anna.
Chris wrote the ending, so he'll tell you.
You wrote the prologue. So it's Mele Moana is paired up with Adam Yates to walk down the aisle together as her friend. I could just, anyone could read that. It is a book about two people who are broken. Mele broke her neck 6 years before the book begins. And at the same time, Adam sort of broke his soul. And he is soul sick, and she is afraid of the water. And their love for each other makes them stronger and fearless, and it heals each other. Like, they heal each other. And the way that we did it was, we've got Mele, who is, I don't know, I really love this character. I think she's an amazing woman, and she's a role model, and she's somebody who is got greatness inside of her. And then you've got Adam, who, like, a couple of the first people who read the books, like, editors were like, he is an unlikable individual. We don't like Adam. And I was like, hold on a second. Like, he's kind of me. So how do we make this guy likable? And it really, it comes down to, can love make you better? And it's not, there's an old turn of phrase like missionary dating. There's nothing to do about, like, but there is this idea of, can just the love of another person make you the best version of yourself? And we wanted to explore that theme with this book, and I think we did.
That's fantastic, and there's good reactions coming in the chat about that already. When you had that conversation then about the character, you clearly had some reflection on that character, and as writers, we do tend to put people we know or ourselves into those characters. Did you kind of find resistance in wanting to change that character, or were you kind of open to that suggestion?
I think we were open. I
think we just, all we did, I think we just added, I think we took away a few layers of unlikability and added a few, but I don't think he changed ultimately. Yeah. Like, we packaged him a little differently. I
was going to say, because the message about love creating a stronger relationship and a better person is a fantastic one. And obviously, if you take away too many of those negative layers, flaws, I guess it kind of takes away from the impact of that as well. So it must be quite a tricky balance to get it right, from not putting people off the character, but keeping him just on the edge enough for that reaction to be more effective.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said.
And I think that's why it took us a long time to get the book right, because he was, Adam is a more complicated character than, let's say, Warren was. I mean, Warren had his own issues, but I think Adam was more complicated, and we had to bring him to a point where, let's not hate him. Let's dislike him for all he is, but there's some level of like redemption and understanding of why he is that person.
Yeah.
So,
the question was, why would Melee be attracted to this guy? Like, he's got to be somebody that she's attracted to. And so we were trying to find the balance of like, how do you get a guy who's a bit of a bad boy and who's got demons, but that this girl who's a bit of an angel and who really doesn't have demons, like, how do you get these two together? And that was the I think the biggest challenge ultimately. But I think we solved it like a Rubik's Cube. I think if you keep working, you find the angles and you
we worked on it a lot.
Yeah. Did you feel there was many differences, but how you worked on book 1 and book 2 in terms of your approaching of it?
Anna, why don't you take this one? You go for it.
Yeah, I think book 1, when Chris joined the project, it was more clear cut, and I had this thing in my mind, and he jumped in and like really helped like craft the story, mold the story, and then he was Warren, and it was easier to write like a real person and stuff like that. And then in this one, I think, first of all, this one is really like a collaborative effort. It was chapter by chapter, voice by voice. Chris and me. So nobody can even take 100% ownership of this book. It was really our book. And so it was very different in the sense that we had to spur each other from each other's ideas. So one chapter would spur him, my chapter would, his chapter would spur me to, and then there were a lot of times during this process too, life was happening to both of us. And so we had to maneuver through that. Moments like this, he was in the UK with 100% attention on this book. We were on lockdown. I was home on my outside deck, just hammering this story out. It was harder for us this time. Don't you agree, Chris? Life
100%.
started to come in, family started to come in, and everything started to happen, and jobs and production shoots and all these things, and we were trying to like find like the happy medium between our responsibility towards our real jobs and our families and this book, which is why this is an October release. It took us a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, our anticipation was to do that, the March 21st date every year, like have like a, From Kona with Love month, basically. And it just became untenable. The closer we got to that date, we were like, the book's not, I mean, from March to June, we literally changed the timeline of the book. Like we adjusted chapters and switched, because we were like, all right, let's start it here and we'll tell the story in retrospect and we'll move forward again. And I think Anna, gets a lot of credit for moments like this, because not only did she write the first, 8 or 9 chapters, it was 100% before I even entered the picture. My job was to just write she said, here's your job. Go write chapters, go be Warren, do this thing, which is how we came up with the Conceit of the Moments tour. And then she, like a puzzle, like she just put the pieces together and she knitted that book together. So I just sent her, free floating chapters, and she knitted them together and made sense of what Moments was. And like she said, this one was stacked. She would write a chapter and my job was to read that, be inspired by it. And I couldn't continue. And there was a period of time where I don't know whose fault it was, but we weren't writing because life had taken over, and like 3 weeks had gone by. And I was like, we have to keep, like both Anna and I, and we felt it, like we were feeling this, like we have to keep going. Like what?
Like cranky and like, just like, what?
Like what's going to happen? And it is like, it's like, being a writer, I'm finding, and I'm wearing that title loosely, but as the author of the book, I think I can say it now. It's like going to the gym. If you don't do it every single day, if you don't keep at it, if you don't keep exercising your writer muscles, they're going to get flabby and they're soft. And so like right now with book 3, like we're both working on these projects, and we're keeping going, even though the date for book 3 is this sort of waffling thing, and we don't know when that's going to happen. And so, I mean, so you just have to keep pushing forward.
Definitely.
There's also a lot, Chris, as you know, there's a lot of problems with supply chain and paper and all that stuff, which is also pushing publishing dates back. So it's very frustrating.
Definitely. You
No,
kind of mentioned, sorry. Yeah, you kind of mentioned how book 2 was almost kind of, there was more pressures in different ways. And of course, this is set up for a 5-book series. Is that still the case?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like perhaps as time goes on, you will feel even more pressure or expectation from kind of the following, or are you quite comfortable with how that's going to set out already?
I think we know where everything's going. We know what each book will be about. We just have to get down to it. And you know what the good thing is? We're not pressured in that sense where we can both talk about it and go, hey, you know what, book 4, if like he gets a big movie deal and he has no time, like then book 4 is it and we'll wait. You know, we don't have that pressure where we have to deliver one a year. We'd love to. But again, we both have jobs that, you know, take a lot of our time too. So.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris, I interrupted you. Did you
yeah,
have a
sorry.
question?
No, none at all. I was just thinking about how COVID, like that was the one perk of COVID was you had paying for a hotel room you would live in for 15. I mean, literally, like I got stuck in a hotel room for 15 days that I didn't have to pay for. And imagine being alone in a hotel room for, I mean, I wrote 80,000 words in the UK because that was all I had to do every day. No, but I was going to say to her, you know, people who, you know, with the supply, you know, this was printed by a completely different company than Moments Like This was printed by. And so there's some slight variations in texture and all that stuff because of the supply and demand chain, like the supply issue. It's interesting, like just to get books into stores right now and to get things printed. It's weird, but it's a challenge. You wouldn't think
I had not realized that here. I haven't been aware of that issue, and it's quite surprising to hear that, you know, me and Anna spoke very briefly before we came on the show, and parts of Chicago she mentioned were quite quiet in respect to. In the UK, we've been very sheltered of that, and so for me to hear, you know, there's still quiet in places and there's shortages of paper is quite shocking to hear. So it must be something you really have to adapt or adjust to when you plan your releases. And of course, when you released your first book in the series, it was during lockdown. And now we are kind of out of it. So how have you planned that release? And have you done anything special because perhaps you didn't get that feeling of a nice release on the first book?
We've not met yet in person. So on October 11th at Bel Cantos Bookstore in Long Beach, California, we're going to meet for the very first time.
Yes.
In person. We have 4 readings, signings, readings, QAs on the calendar. I think a 5th one's going to be added in December in the New York area. So we're kind of taking a victory lap for Moments and for Sunrise, and taking advantage of the fact that the lockdown is no longer in place and that we can get out and meet our readers.
Yes.
Yeah. So in case you want to publish a book, Chris, the other Chris, just know that there's a long lead time.
Yeah, note taken. Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing, and I'm excited for you both, and I think that'll be an amazing thing for you to experience and finally getting together and those books to come out and to really celebrate it, because there was a lot of people that released books during the COVID lockdown, and it was a long time, and they really didn't get to experience what that could be like. So hopefully you will with Where the Sun Rises now. And we got a question from Gail in the chat. She says, Chris did an audio version for Moments. Is he going to be doing an audio version for Sunrise?
The plan is that I will be doing one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Again, will the time to make audio? So yeah, it looks like there will be. So there you go.
Yeah.
The books.
I did that. If I could send you a picture of my my makeshift studio, we used this company, and they sent me the little Zoom audio recorder. I'm sure you know what that is. And they sent me headphones and this little cloud thing to kind of MIDI the sound as it went from the microphone into the Zoom recorder. And I hung this soundproofing off of my cabinets like I had a desk with some cabinets. I opened the cabinets and I created this like weird little room that I sat in, and I read, I think I was able to hammer that entire book out. Do you remember, Anna, how long? It was like 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, you did like 2 chapters a day or something.
Or was it even less time than that? I
It
remember
was less time. It's like probably 10 days. It was
a
less
week,
time.
right? It was like 10 days, like a week. I just remember, I think it was 10 chapters a day. I just was like, just read, I would just jam through. And if I made a fumble on a word, or if I got to a Hawaiian word and I had to like say it 4 different times to make sure the pronunciation was right, the guy then, that's where he would come in and edit. But yeah, it was a marathon, and I would drink red vinegar to keep my throat lubricated.
Wow. That sounds extreme, and disgusting, perhaps. Was it disgusting?
You know, at first you're like, but then you kind of get used to it. And you're like, I need another shot of my red vinegar.
Yeah. Amazing. We have a question in from Simulated Created. How did you decide on the title of the series and then the books within it? Was this kind of a difficult thing to do?
Very difficult. Very difficult. You had to come up with, I mean, personally, we had to exchange like 10, 15 titles and just keep like working with it. For the series, we wanted to do a series based in Hawaii. So that's the title of the series was pretty easy. It's just like, okay, let's pick a title that, denotes Hawaii, Kona. But then every book, it's basically we come up with the storyline first, and then we throw around some titles.
Yeah.
Because
each book represents an island, if I remember from last time around. Is that right?
Yep. So each book is an island. So
yeah. And was there a specific reason why you chose the certain islands that represent the types of books, or was it kind of just right? There's 7 islands, 5 books, 5 islands. We'll go with that, or was it kind of more specific than that?
I don't know. We just like the islands.
I feel like that was a conversation that you and I had where we were like, why don't we just set each book on a separate island? I think that was something that turned us on.
Yeah, for sure. But then picking the islands, I think we just loved it. And plus we needed to have experience on the island, and those are the islands we kind of know.
Yeah. I was going to say, was there some marketing ploy where you thought if we do one for each island, we have to then go on the island to kind of promote?
We knew that already. We knew we'd have to go to the island.
We're like 100%. So book 3 takes place on Molokai, which no one goes to Molokai. And so we're sitting here going like, how do we research like what? And so we're looking at lots of photos, but I want to go to Molokai so badly. I'm like,
what's the reason for no one going there?
Well, it's one of the little known islands. It's the home of Kalalupapa. It's a leper colony. And so from the mid 1800s all the way until 1969, it was home to people who were suffering from leprosy. And geographically speaking, they would get shipped in a cage to this peninsula on the north shore of Molokai. Which runs horizontally. It looks like a bedroom slipper with a little tongue sticking up. And the tongue is this leper colony, but it's cut off from the rest of the island with these sheer cliffs. And then this mountain range on top of that. It's just a dramatic island that wasn't, there's islands, if you're Polynesian and you settle Waikiki, you're pretty happy to be in Waikiki. You don't need to go out to Molokai. So just, over time, it wasn't a place that was never a destination,
and it's a very dark history. Very dark, violent history. That's just interesting to us. It was they would ship people there with leprosy. There was a lot of there's rape. There was the authorities would go there and. There's a limited supply of food, all that. So, and I don't even think they talk about that a lot now because it was just such a dark time in the island. And I think that, So
it certainly sounds like something a historical fiction writer could go and investigate. Definitely.
oh my gosh, all the research and the books we read, right, Chris? We had to read about the history, and it was pretty ugly.
There's
Very
this
sad.
there's an incredible book that has a chapter dedicated to Molokai, and it talks about this one particular individual he thought himself sort of the mayor of Molokai, the sheriff of Kala. I can't say it. Kalapapa. I don't know. Anyway, Kalaupapa. And he was a beast. This dude was brutal. And like Anna was saying, some of these women, they wouldn't have the leprosy sores yet, so they would look normal, or they would look without leprosy, and that would make them desirable to these men who were losing their jaw or their nose or their limbs from leprosy, and they would just get raped, and they would get raped to a point of like insanity. Like it was, and just absolute lawlessness. I mean, so it's this little tiny settlement, and once you were, and the ships would get up, they would drop these people into the water. The people would swim to shore. So the ships never even landed. They would drop food off and the provisions and stuff, and then the ship would leave. And these people were just left for dead. And then this guy named Father Damien showed up and built a church, and he kind of radically changed the community and the environment. And so that by the time that our protagonist in book 3 gets there, it's a different kind of community, but still, once you're sentenced there, it's a life sentence. And again, until 1969. And then the American government was like, you know what, if you want to leave Molokai, leprosy's, we can contain it with pills now, and you're welcome. And the people who lived there decided to spend the rest of their lives. It had become their home.
So think about that, bringing love into such a dark place. It's such a great challenge for us to do, and that's what we're writing about.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I hope the society has changed there. As Anna says, my aunt goes there. She moved to Hawaii a few years ago, and she loves the island. So I'm assuming it's in a better place now. Well, I hope so. Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of reaction to that in the chat. That's really interesting. And it goes to show the kind of depth you guys have gone to for your research, which is incredible. Samantha has a question. She says, does book 3 have a title yet?
We just call it Molokai right now, the Molokai book.
Yeah.
No, we don't have a title yet.
There you go.
It's funny, the titles, you titled moments like this. Because I came onto the project and it was already titled. I remember that. And then with Where the Sun Rises, you and I remember kicked back. It was like
there's like 10, 15 titles going back and forth.
Just go, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And all of a sudden, a title. And again, it's not about, I don't even know who got to name it, but it's like a title shows up and you're like, that's good. And then we searched other books, and then there's like another book with the same, but we're like, you know what? It's fine. We'll take
It's always frustrating, isn't it? You think, no one's going to have this, and then suddenly there's a couple there. And come on.
Everybody has everything.
Yeah. There's nothing. What they say, there's nothing original out there anymore. I'm not sure.
Right.
There must be.
The tropes are not original, right? So
there's another question. Can you say yet which characters book 3 focus on?
I mean, we can, but do we want to?
No.
No,
not yet.
No, that's fine. So I want to know, for a personal question here, with these 5 books in the series, will there ever be a point where you kind of, either of you think, I want to now start writing in a different genre? Because that always fascinates me. Anna?
Chris can write his mystery genres.
Yes.
Because he likes that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have time to even think about that.
I have a feeling that she's gonna write a book one day called The Collaboration, and she'll write this like fun book about our collaboration one day.
The entire thing was like a research project.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
a trick.
I created this character named Orson Holt in short story form last year, and I keep the idea of writing romances and mysteries just sounds like smart business to me, and so if I can get away with it, I am going to try to do. I'm going to try to introduce. He's a private eye who solves mysteries. So I think that genre, that mystery genre, would be a fun one to try to tackle. So
yeah,
I am going to try to do that at some point.
Amazing. So going back to the island, the amazing story you told about that. Is there anywhere either of you would want to go for a research trip that you would think that'd be a really cool place to go?
Anywhere in the world aside from Molokai?
Anywhere, I guess. Something that takes your fancy. Is there anything on your bucket list?
Where are you located, Kristoffer?
I am located in South Wales.
You're in Wales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is not in England for some people that think it is.
Yeah, no, you guys are your own. You guys are your own chunk of the island. Ireland has always held a vast interest in my mind to go and to just like, but not just to go to Dublin or Belfast, but like to really get in like a car, like an or something, and go and visit and just travel around. And it'd be fun to live there. It'd be fun to shoot a project over there, or to go and research and live and write a book and live there for a while and really suck up that atmosphere.
Yeah.
What about you, Anna? Any place in the world you'd want to go live and write?
You know what? I wrote a lot about Greece in my book, 8 Goodbyes. I've never been to Greece, so I'd love to go and live what the characters saw and did. And so, but bucket list wise, no, I'm pretty happy where I'm at. I don't know. Is that weird? People ask me, like, have you done everything on your bucket list? Well, I don't want to jump from a plane, and I don't want to bungee jump, and I don't want to rock climb. So no.
Fair enough.
I've done everything.
Content is the aim of life, isn't it? Brilliant. Okay, so if this is going to be like a hard question for you, I feel, because you both got such a good relationship like this, is there someone else in the world you would like to co-author with? On the spot on that one. Be careful how you answer this one.
Wait a minute, who?
No. Just because I know, and Chris, you can have a different answer and I won't get hurt, but just because I know that it's a lot of investment, you know, it's got to be worth the investment, or else
not worth it.
Yeah.
At this point, I can't see. It would be like it'd be like being in a really good marriage and being like, this is fun. Why don't I try to do it again with somebody else? Like you got to get things going, and we'll ride this one out. Like we'll do our 5 books, even if it's not, because right now we've got a nice track record of 1 a year, and we even know that book 3 is going to come out in 2024. So we know that next year we're going to skip a beat. But even if that means book 5 comes out, 5 years from now, because we have to take time off to, do the jobs or to go film movies, whatever it is. It's been cool. There's no one off the top of my head where I'd be like, I'm interested in that. Because
that makes sense.
I mean, it's a big, like, you have to be lockstep with somebody, and I can see how this thing could go south so fast.
Yeah. And I've been asked to co-author a few times before in the Christine Bray world, and it's just difficult. It's like how do I even share my words with someone? Like remember, Chris, I'm very possessive about my stuff.
Well, I think we told you this story last time, Christopher. She would not share me the 8 chapters that she'd written. Contracts, we'd already agreed to collaborate. I was heading to the UK to film Jurasic, and I was like, Anna, I need to read the book. Like, I need to know, like, I got to start thinking about it. And she was like, oh, I've never. So, like, it wasn't even that I was a beta reader. Like, I was a reader that was almost like her opening her heart and being like, here, this is like,
Yeah.
It must be tough, Anna, because you're not releasing your words to a reader. You're putting it next to another professional who's going to work alongside you and develop something that you, since before that time, had held very possessively. So, I mean, the challenges were there, but like, kind of, what were your first feelings when you very first did this as a co-author relationship, when you started receiving work back with Chris's input on that?
It wasn't difficult in the sense that I didn't like what he wrote or I felt like he was changing my words, but it was different. It was different. There was a time when Kristoffer did not track changes and changed everything I wrote. And then when it came back to me, I'm like, this isn't me. And so, and that first feeling is like, it's more trying to figure out, did I say that? Did I write that? Because it was a different style or, and after you get over that, you actually think, oh my God, this sounds so much better. And I think that's for the two of us. We track changes now, so there's nothing to worry about. But, it was just a different feeling. But I'm also the type of person that I'm so paranoid about walking into a meeting or somewhere wearing the same thing as somebody else. So like, I'm just very possessive about, my friend just told somebody where I bought something and I'm like, you do not divulge where I buy my clothes. I don't want anyone to buy the same clothes. Like, I'm just like that. It's just a weird thing with me. So it was very hard to give Chris those first 8 chapters.
Brilliant. Yeah, but I have to throw the ball back into Anna's court as far as credit goes, because this entire series, or the 2 books so far, would not be possible without her. Like, it is her organization, it is her enthusiasm, it is her willingness to collaborate, it is her absolute sort of absorption of I'm like the kid who gets to show up, who everyone calls a prodigy, and they're like, oh, look at the little prodigy, go do your little thing. And she's like, great, bring me more. And so I just get to kind of, and Anna, you really are the backbone of this thing. And you need that. I mean, I want you to have that credit. You should have that credit. And everyone should know that that's the case, because it's a collaboration, but it takes somebody who has been driving the car to keep driving the car. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm also very grateful that you trusted me to drive the car. We both have to agree who the driver is, and you know what though, Chris, you're giving yourself too little credit. This second book was really totally 50-50. I mean, we really, every chapter was you and me. There was I don't even know who wrote what.
Yeah, well, that's because I didn't track changes, and I literally would go in and like there was another quarantine, and I was like, and I meant to. I didn't know. I wasn't doing it like I'm not going to track changes, but I just was like, as I was reading it, I was like sanding it out. I was polishing it as I was reading what she had written, and I was like, and so literally there was, and it was half a book. So we're talking about it wasn't just like a chapter that you can go, and so like all of a sudden she read it and she was like, wait, did you? And I'm like, yeah, I thought I did. I was like, yeah, do you like it? And she was like, buddy, you got to track changes. And then of course I know what that feels like, because I would give something and then I'd be like, wait, what happened to that one thing I wrote? Like, is that, and then, you kind of go through and you're like, are we not going to put that in the book? Is that not making it?
That's one thing. I mean, it's not all roses. And I mean, there are times we call each other and go, did you remove this? Or did you add this? Well, I mean, we're human. And so we both love our work. We're both proud of our work. And so we know what we wrote. And sometimes we would call each other and go, did you change this? Or, where did that go? Like, it was there, remember? And we would just, be honest with each other and go, well, I kind of changed it or kind of moved it or, but yeah.
And there was something in this book that I was very passionate about keeping in, and it was taken out, and from the editors, though I think it was an editor.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
It wasn't Anna. But then I was like, guys, I really feel, and I had to defend it. Like, I had to go and show thematically why it was essential to stay in the story and how it was a character, like how it was literally the turning point of this dude's character. Yeah. And this thing, and it's in there, and I got this, and I literally I was like, found it. I was like, okay, good, it's in there.
So I'll ask a couple more questions before we wrap this up, because we're getting to that time and it's flown by. Your relationship obviously is really apparent and it's amazing, and I think it's extremely professional, but at the same time really kind of familiar and in a great way. Samantha also says, I think this is why you both work so well together. You complement each other. And Laura says exactly, Sam, backing up that point. So it's obviously appreciated by your readership as well. So keep on doing that, because it's something, as an example from what I can tell from co-authoring. Chris, I wanted to ask you, from your acting time, do you feel like when you're writing character dialogue that you kind of have to adjust the way you naturally think about that, or is it kind of a natural process for you?
I feel like it's interesting, because when I'm writing dialogue, the character that I'm writing for has a very distinct voice. And I think as an actor, I'm somebody who's been able to, like, my whole job is to tap into other people's voices for a living. It's what I do for a living. And I think that's why with Moments, it was so easy, to sort of find Andy's voice, or to find a voice for Warren. Like there was, like Hannah had done such a great job creating these characters and making their voices sort of easily identifiable. And I was able to kind of loop in. But like, I'm thinking about your question as in respects to this book 3, and there are these distinct characters, and they each have a very clear cut voice. And you kind of fall into that rhythm when you start writing the dialogue for them. It's actually a real fun. I love writing. I mean, it is, I wake up in the morning and I can spend about an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours just typing away, and you disappear into this world. And it's like, I remember I went on a mission trip once to Costa Rica. We built it was to Belize, and we built a church in the middle of a jungle. But before we got there, it was just jungle. And so you picked up a machete and you just started hacking away the greenery. And we just cleared this dense swath of land. So everything on outside was like walls of greenery. And then everything in the footprint of where the church was going to be, or became a stronghold for the community, was cleared out. And that's what writing's a lot like. You just, you enter with a jungle of a million ideas, a million thoughts, a million words, and you just start hacking away. And before you know it, you've got this thing that you built.
That's a great way to explain that. I like that. One more from the audience then. And Rita says, what's the status of the books being made into a movie?
I was going to ask you, Chris, if we can just give some good news.
I think why don't you? I think this would be a wonderful place to share the news with people. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, we have different news. What news? No.
Multiple news.
No. Yeah, we received a copy of the outline it is going to be made into a movie, hopefully soon. We received a copy of the outline. We have a script writer who's doing a really great job, and it's moving along. Anything to add? Yeah.
It was Erin Brown Thomas, and this is the first time we've talked about it publicly. I think I mentioned it in an article, but she was brought onto the project and has jumped in as a collaborator and understands structure. She's probably one of the greatest structure, like, screenplay writers I've ever met. And I've met a lot. Like, she understands it in a way that's almost savant level. And she read Moments like this and she loved it. And she said, I have a really wonderful angle. I think I could tell the story. And we have an outline that we were excited about. And she is currently writing the script as we speak. We have a producer, Michael Goldstein, who is on board, locked and loaded. And the only thing we need is a $7 million, and we're off to the races.
Well, I can't tell you.
I think we're going to get that. I have a feeling we're going to get that. So
yeah, there was about 6 questions relating to that in the chat. So it was obviously some people were very interested to know if that was the case. Awesome news. A movie would be amazing. And someone said, where will it be seen? Is that kind of known yet, or is that a long way away?
I think Anna and I, our goal is to have it be a theatrical release. We would love it to be a movie in a movie theater. We'd love it to have a worldwide release that you could go and see it. And then ultimately it will end up on a streamer anyway. And then, that we'll let that fall where it may. But yeah, the goal is to put it in theaters. Yeah.
Yep. Samantha says, if I win the lottery, 7 million is yours. So she'll
Thanks,
fund you for that. Yeah.
That's great.
But so just before we do wrap up, where can people expect to find Where the Sun Rises and release date and all those good things? Anyone got an answer, Chris?
Yes. So Where the Sun Rises, it'll be available everywhere books are sold October 11th. You can really, the amazing thing to do is to call your brick and mortar local bookstore, whether that's Barnes and Noble or whether it's a private and independent bookstore. Call them right now and pre-order it so that it'll be waiting for you on October 11th, because we're not, one of the big boys where we're shipping thousands of copies to each place. It's like a bespoke distillery, if you will, limited number. And then of course you can get it on Amazon, and of course you can do the ebook. Anna, is there anything, did I miss anything?
No, just Barnes and Noble, the major stores. And then also, I just want to mention that we'll be in LA next week for 2 book signings. It will be in Chicago, and then probably New York in December. So there's a lot of ways to get the book, to see us, and to pre-order the books anywhere.
Incredible. Rita says, I called Barnes and Noble. It's on order.
Rita.
Valerie's birthday is on the 11th, so she's very excited. So there you go. People have got 5 days to get that ordered. Plenty of time. And there you have it, guys. I can only say thank you to Kristoffer. Thank you to Anna for sharing your amazing stories with me once again. And thank you to each and every one of you that tuned in. That's it. I think we've run out of time, so I'd love to keep this going for another 2 hours, but we can't do it. So, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate you.
We do. We love you very much.
Guys, in the chat, please stay safe, and obviously I'll be doing my big walk next week, so tune into the shows that I
Yes, good luck on the walk.
Oh, thank you. And check out Where the Sun Rises, get it on order, and if you need help finding that, I'll put links in the description when it's out there. So thank you, guys. Look after yourselves, please stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.